With electrified products, you get, current load at all times. So if I know the current feed to those actuators and to those drive motors at all time, then we can do things with software that we can't do with hydraulics. And that's where it really, really turned differently for us, because we could tune the machine in so many different ways and faster than we could traditionally with diesel hydraulics. And that's where our engineers really, really went to town, thinking about, okay, what are all these different features? What are all these different things we can do now? Because we really had a software platform now.
All right. Well, Joel, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Greg Schultz with Charged, and Joel is the VP of Global Innovation at Bobcat. And the reason we're having this conversation today is we had actually met at CES in Las Vegas earlier this year, and I stopped by the booth because some of the new tech they had on display caught my eye. Obviously, we're very interested in any developments in electrification, and we've been beginning to focus more on off-highway developments. And so we had done a quick video there to discuss some of the tech that you were showcasing. And as we got the idea to do this series, we wanted to reach out. We thought you'd be a great place to start and get maybe a little bit more information for anybody who maybe saw those videos or has seen some of the press coming from your company lately, to discuss this in a little bit greater detail. So thank you very much for joining us. And to kind of kick things off, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the electrification journey so far at Bobcat. So when, why, how did we get started on this project?
Well, great to be here, Greg. Great to talk to all of your listeners out there and tell the Bobcat story, because it's been kind of fun. So, we started in this, I would say, in earnest, probably 6-7 years ago, when automotive really started to delve into EV, right? And we saw the trends and we saw all the other things that were taking place in the automotive industry. We knew that was a natural parallel for our types of equipment. So we started to talk about electrifying our equipment. Of course, the first thought was, well, let's take the engine out of a machine and we'll just stick a battery in and put electric drive on the end, and then we're done. And you can do that. And we've done that with some products. The however is, when all this came about, and going back to 2019, we started to think about electrification maybe a little bit differently. And it's what led us down the path that we did for this all-electric platform, this Bobcat T7X that we've introduced now, and then some future products that we got coming, because it allowed us to think about technology a little bit differently and how we might electrify that piece of equipment a little bit differently. Because the one thing we thought about, and our engineers were the ones that really kicked this off and started thinking about, just taking the engine out and putting a battery in, it doesn't really change the performance of the machine that much. And so it's like, hey, what can we do from a component standpoint that would take things to the next level? So what our thesis was, let's not just do something that's sustainable. Let's do something that's sustainable and more productive and more powerful became our new thesis. And that's where all electric really got born in that first concept machine we built.
Excellent. I love that. So you mentioned you had to think about it a little bit differently, or at least you chose to think about it a little bit differently. Did any of that involve having to win over internal skeptics? I mean, I know that not at every company do they welcome electrification. So I'm curious about that.
Well, we had plenty of skeptics. I chuckle and laugh because there are a lot of skeptics. First of all, there was the skepticism. Now you got to remember, we've been around for 65 plus years. Our whole company is based upon hydraulics and diesel engine. This is what we do, and we're really, really good at it. Okay, so this is our core. This is a very, very core competency. So what we said was, hey, all you engineers and everyone else internally, and I'm an engineer by education, I'm mechanical. We're going to throw all that away, and we're going to do something totally different. So you just think about that first meeting. But what we did, though, was when our team had the hypothesis, our group of engineers, and they talked to a supplier company, we thought in a different industry could supply these components. In 6 weeks, we built a concept demonstrator, and that was really important, because what I really believe in innovation is you have to make things believable. Okay, you can't just describe them on a piece of paper or an image or a PowerPoint. You got to build them and make them believable. And in 6 weeks, and I'll never forget the end of December, we had all the executives, all the global executives came in, and we showed this first machine. We didn't even think that it would have enough power to turn the tracks. Like, is it going to lift the lift arms, and these actuators going to work? Like, there was all kinds of doubts, but it worked. And people got excited. Our team got excited off of that very, very first concept demonstrator. And that was our catalyst before starting to go, oh, okay, now let's take the next step. And what platform would it be? And how would we really do this in a commercial setting? But that whole make believable was so important to convince people that it really was possible to make an all-electric platform, and then to be able to do the things that we've been able to do in that platform going forward.
So was that kind of the impetus behind like really diving into what makes electric tech great? So what I mean by that is, you mentioned something that really stuck out to me a minute ago, where you said you wanted to leverage what it is electrification does well, rather than just using our internal combustion brain to create an electrified product.
Correct.
Is that
Correct.
kind of what led to that?
Yes. Yeah. So a little deeper dive. So what we thought about was, if we removed the hydraulics, which hydraulics unto themselves, it's a great system, it's low cost, but there are some inherent disadvantages, right? You have a bunch of fluid flowing, but then you're limited in terms of pressure and flow. At some point, you're only going to have so much power in a cylinder, or you have to increase the size, or you have to increase flow in order to do more work. The other thing is, you don't always know the position of that cylinder at all times. So if you're going to do precise movements and other things, you could use an electric actuator in that place and be able to get that information. The other thing is, with electrified products, you get, current load at all times. So if I know the current feed to those actuators and to those drive motors at all time, then we can do things with software that we can't do with hydraulics. And that's where it really, really turned differently for us, because we could tune the machine in so many different ways and faster than we could traditionally with diesel hydraulics. And that's where our engineers really, really went to town, thinking about, okay, what are all these different features? What are all these different things we can do now? Because we really had a software platform now. That's what we said. We had a software platform that we could do different things with. And just one example is, typically in our products, we talk about being potentially hydraulically limited. So you can only lift so many pounds, because you can, again, so much flow and pressure, being able to raise that cylinder. Well, with electric, I just put more current to it, right? And I can size the actuator and the motor on that actuator, and I just put more current to it. And so we could lift way more with an electric machine than we could with diesel hydraulic. And so just being able to go through all those different design iterations then became our first commercial all electric product.
So was that kind of a benefit that you anticipated going into the project, or were some of those benefits that you learned as you got going through the engineering process?
Maybe a little bit of each. I think when we think about it, it was maybe a little bit of each. Some things we learned on our own. Like, our engineers came back and said, hey, if we know current, we would know where current spikes are. So it's like, one simple application is, when you roll back the quick attach, the Bobcat in our machines, and it rolls back into the frame, sometimes you get a rock, or you'll get things that'll penetrate in there. And so that can maybe cause damage to the machine. Well, now we know when we get a current spike on the actuator that something's there, we can instantaneously back that off. We can back the current off slightly. And so we can prevent damage to the machine. And so we have that right now on as a feature on our all-electric loader. So that's just one small example of being able to do that. Another example is just a really cool feature we like to call beast mode. And beast mode is just this really cool feature. You hit a button on the left joystick, and it provides full current to the drives, but only when the lift arm and the tilt is in a certain position, again, to prevent damage to the machine. But you can just blow through the pile of dirt. So for an equivalent 75 horsepower machine, we're actually generating what we would call 125 horsepower to the drives at that moment. And we only do it for a quick burst, so you're kind of consuming a bunch of energy, but you can power through the pile. Again, just these little things with software and current that you can't do. You couldn't do this with diesel hydraulic. You just can't. And so, again, our whole thesis was on this. we're going to make all electric, and we're going to make it more powerful and more productive than diesel hydraulic. And oh, by the way, it's a sustainable platform. We say sustainability comes along for the ride for free. Like that's just, yeah, okay. But if we can go to a contractor and say that machine just powers way more, that's what we want to accomplish with this platform.
Yeah, and as an enthusiast of electrification tech, that is such a lovely thing to hear because, we can love it for all the sustainability reasons, and that's great. We should. But when that tech is really going to take off is when it's just a better argument as a piece of equipment, period. Full stop. It's a better solution.
Right. It's what I tell people. What do your buddies show you when you get an electric car? Do they show you how, hey, there's no tailpipe in the back? No. They sit and they hit the pedal all the way down and pin your head back and show you the acceleration of an electric vehicle. Right? They're showing you power. Like this is what people want to show off. And again, a car is different than construction equipment, but we want to show power to our customers when they're driving that equipment.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, I think, the T7X loader. Yep. There's another product as well, right? Can you go into a little bit more detail on what those products are today that are currently available?
Yeah, so commercially we have available the T7X. That's the all-electric loader. So we have that loader platform. We have 2 models of excavators currently that are electric. So that's an E10 and an E19, but that's an electric and a hydraulic. So that's battery powered. And so those 2 excavators available, and we're just launching an electric zero-turn mower. So that'll become available as well. So those are all commercially available. But then we have some other concept machines that we've been showing. We showed one at the CES show, an all-electric cabless autonomous type of version. Because once we did this first version, now it became, well, now what else can we do on this platform? So we took the cab off, and we're going more futuristic on potentially what a future work vehicle will look like. That 8 to 10 years down the road, if you remove the operator station, what else can we do with that platform? And so we showed a couple of these different concepts. The Rogue S1 and Rogue X2 are 2 really great examples of just that really futuristic type of design.
Awesome. So to go into a little bit more detail on the pieces of equipment that are commercially available today, what are kind of the use cases there? What type of fleet's going to adopt that? What are they using it to do, et cetera? Yeah. For anybody that might not be familiar yet.
Yeah. So, with the excavators and even some of our smaller products, those a lot of times our vehicles are going from outdoors to indoors. So they're going back and forth, and they want to eliminate exhaust and fumes from the indoors, obviously. And so people are very sensitive to that. What's really interesting, though, about the T7X is we've gotten a number of calls where people have sustainability initiatives, but they also want to prevent spills and leaks and drips from any hydraulic oil. So we've had a number of very large customers who are maybe building data centers, hospitals, very sensitive types of sites, and they've asked for our equipment to be in there, to being able to be the equipment that's in there, because they know that they're very, obviously we don't have any hydraulic oil in there. And the other thing is it's very, very quiet. The other part of this is if you're working in a urban environment, if you're working in some different areas and you just want to eliminate noise for the bystanders and for the people around, these are great products for that. But also for the operator, especially in the loader, the T7X, it's extremely, extremely quiet compared to its diesel hydraulic version. And so we're getting different types of applications, but however I'll add to you, though, is because of the T7X and the things we're talking about, and when people sit in that machine, they're saying, I don't care what I'm doing. I want that machine for its experience, for the power, the performance, the quietness, all the things that it gives me. I'll do my general dirt work outdoors with this vehicle compared to diesel hydraulic. We've probably had at least 300 different customers drive an all-electric loader. We've yet to have a single one that have said, for power and performance, they would take diesel hydraulic back. Not one. Now, there are other things we're going to talk about, probably like charge times and some other things. Those are real. But for power and performance, they would not trade that electric vehicle back for their diesel hydraulic. And so to us, that's the important portion of this is, have we hit on a vehicle and a package that can be more productive and powerful?
Perfect. So 2-part question to kind of follow up on that. What are some of the features or attributes they like so much about this piece of equipment compared to predecessors? And did any of those surprise you? You didn't really anticipate that they were going to like that as much?
Yeah, there is some different. It is interesting. That's an interesting question you brought up, because one of the things that's interesting about diesel hydraulic compared to electric. So in diesel hydraulic, you get in, you have to idle it up. Like you have to go from idle up to half, 3/4, even full throttle, obviously, to be able to get full power. And so people are instantly thinking about that. Where I'm at idle on a diesel hydraulic, I know I'm not going to be able to do a bunch of real work. I'm just going to be moving around. With electric, as soon as you hit press to operate button, you have 100% torque right there. There's no throttle up. And so the perception immediately, they're like, whoa, yeah, it's game on immediately. There is no throttle in an electric vehicle. And so just from a mindset, people think, well, it's more responsive and I have more power. And I think part of that is because of what I just explained, because they have I say it this way, they have 100% torque at, I say 0 RPM, basically at every RPM from that standpoint. They have and so they're experiencing that, and that was something we just didn't really realize. I don't think in the beginning when we started thinking about this vehicle, and some people think, well, does this take me a little bit? Experienced operators will say, well, that gave me 10 minutes, and I figured it out. Being able to do that, and then being able to do different modes. So actually, on our T7X, you have 3 different work modes. You can slow that machine down, you can preserve battery life, or we can really increase it. And so you can have fast responsive times. So for a very experienced operator, they want a lot of response time right away. Well, if it's a new operator, not as experienced, we'll just dial that thing back for you. Again, it's just a button we hit. Can't do that. Can't do that with diesel hydraulic. And so just being able to adjust settings based upon the software and other things are just, yeah, those were some real learnings, for us. And, another one that was just, I think, more accidental than anything, our engineers, when we in our equipment, when you dig and you have a bucket full of dirt and then you dump the dirt out, a lot of times the dirt sticks. And so you have to hit the joystick or you hit the foot pedal and you're trying to get that dirt out of the bucket and shake it. Well, our engineers go, well, we could just hit a button and we can violently shake the bucket really fast and get the material out. So we did that. And that's another feature. You hit the other button on the joystick and you can violently shake the bucket and shake the dirt out. And again, it was, wow, who knew this was possible? And again, it's software. How many ever lines of code it took to write that feature. But again, those are the discoveries, I think, along the way. And I'm sure there's more we haven't even thought of yet until we get more of the vehicles in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So you did touch on battery for a minute, so I'm going to ask some follow-up questions that I know everybody's going to be interested in. What's the operation time look like for that? And then if you have any specs you can share regarding the pack size and kilowatt hours, and then naturally we'll get into charging as well.
So the runtime of a T7X right now, and again, it depends on the operation, right? It depends on what you're doing. But it's 5 hours. Okay, so 5 hours. Now, here's the caveat, and I've said this probably 1,000 times to people. I talk about this is on an electric machine there is no idle. Electric machines don't idle like diesel hydraulic, and I've had to talk to numerous customers about this that don't quite make the correlation. So on diesel hydraulic, people are in and out of our vehicles all day. And the average runtime on our telematics of diesel hydraulics all across the country is about 3 hours a day. 3 hours. Of that 3 hours, 1 hour is at idle, less than 1,300 RPMs. So 1 hour is just somebody's in the machine, they're in and out, they're doing an operation, they're taking a break, doing lunch, but the machine is still running, but that's still hours. So people are counting that in their head, well, I have these hours. Well, as soon as you let off the joysticks of an electric machine, it doesn't consume energy anymore. So you don't have any of that wasted idle time if the person's getting in and out of the machine or having their breaks. It's not running. So what's interesting is in terms of runtime, and I'll say 5 hours, and people, well, I have to run 8. Well, are you really operating a machine 8 hours a day? And the answer is in most cases, no. Now, is it for everybody? No, there's certainly applications that run all day. But for the majority of applications, they are running way less than 5 hours a day. And what we found in some of our early trials with some of our products, the customer was thinking they had to bring them back to charge them every day. They were charging them every 3 days, or one customer said, yeah, it looks like once a week I'm going to be charging my machines because I just wasn't consuming. They weren't consuming as much energy as what they thought because they hadn't correlated yet, runtime on diesel hydraulic with idle compared to electrified. So that's a real big that one is a real big one to try to explain to people. But on our T7X, it's a 5-hour runtime currently, or 5 total hours of operational times available.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. That was something that you and I had talked about at CES as well, because it's very analogous to the kind of range anxiety that you see in the automotive industry, where people are saying, oh my goodness, but I'm not going to get 400 miles in between, like what you would think of as a fill up. It's like, well, okay, how do you use your car in a day-to-day basis? Are you driving 400 miles every day? No. So why are we worrying about that? And you're using it differently. So I think that's definitely a key point for folks to consider, is how are you actually using the equipment? And then it's going to have the power you need to get you through the job.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So as far as charging is concerned, what kind of charging hardware is there? Charging speeds it can handle? Accessories that might be required, and then does it use the same charging plug as automotive applications, the J1172, or does it use something different?
It's a Type 2 automotive charger. So your Type 2 automotive plug is the basic plug for it today. And today it charges, it's a 6 kilowatt hour charger. Oh, and your other question, how big is the battery? It's 70 kilowatt hours on the T7X currently. So it's an overnight charge if it's fully drained all the way. We are working on faster charging. We're also working on DC fast charge options. Charging technology is getting better. Like, here's the thing, like the charging technology is getting better. These things will be able to be retrofitted in the future to being able to accommodate that. We have active cooling on the battery, so that enables us to charge faster and to charge at higher temperatures when required. So it's a big advantage we have of the pack we have in our T7X currently. And so there's a lot of different technologies that are coming. And again, as you said, Greg, people have to plan. Like at some point, the customers, they're planning. The first customers for these products already know where they're going to charge them. They have a good plan for it. 30 amp service is obviously what we recommend. If you have at least 30 amp, 220 service, you'll be able to charge these easily overnight. But the charging battery technologies are getting better and better. And I think that charging time is going to come down significantly over the next several years as we go forward and we get more volume.
Absolutely. And some of that is just going to come down to a mindset that will gradually evolve over time, right? People, as they adopt the technology, they're going to get used to using it the way it needs to be used. And I think a lot of people are still living with their internal combustion brain, and they're viewing electrified equipment through that prism, when the correct answer is think of it as a different product. This is something different. The thought processes that worked for internal combustion don't necessarily work here. And oh, by the way, there's going to be lower maintenance requirements. There's no filters to replace, things of that nature. So it's an evolution of that thought process for sure. And I think, well, you'll be able to tell us more about this as you see the equipment in the field. It's had a little bit more time in the hands of the operators. Are they seeing all the benefits? Have you heard any kind of maybe complaints or any dissent that you weren't anticipating, or has it been pretty positive reception?
Well, it's been pretty positive. It's early in the cycle and the process. These things take years, for people to experience them over time. But again, people love power and performance. It doesn't matter whether you're a construction equipment, an automobile, right? Everyone loves power and performance. And as long as we continue to deliver that, and it's a reliable system, right? It has to have uptime. These are commercial customers. They make a living with our equipment. And so uptime is really important. So I think that's where that's down the road, and understanding that. Our T7X has 40% fewer parts than its diesel hydraulic equivalent. And if you raise up the cab, you can see underneath the T7X equivalent and all those hoses and tube lines. And you look under a T7X, and there's literally nothing under there. And even in terms of wiring harnesses, there's less feet of wire in an all-electric loader than there is in our current diesel hydraulic loader. So all the people who think that we're just adding a bunch of wires to things, that's really not the case. There's plenty of wires in our equipment and in automobiles as well, when it comes to wiring harnesses and all those things. Oh. So again, it's just I tell people it's a thing to experience. Like, everybody has to experience it and try it, have an open mind to it. And I think, people will be very, very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And as somebody who used to work in tech support and field service, less feet of cable, I can't even tell you the joy that brings to my heart, because I remember trying to troubleshoot cable breaks in medical equipment, and it was the most infuriating process. So I'm sure that will make some maintenance people out there very, very happy to hear.
Well, and to add, our first machines we're putting out will be the first ones of Bobcat that will have two-way telematics standard equipment. So we will be able to diagnose online and put out software updates remotely to these vehicles to update the BMS or whatever other software we have on the vehicle as well. And that's a pretty powerful tool for us, just to be able to monitor, understand what's taking place, understand whatever issues there might be, and then being able to diagnose those right away. And again, it's a software platform, as I mentioned. Well, software updates are a part of that. And being able to do that remotely is incredibly important. Like cars, a lot of time cars today, right? You got to go to the dealer, you got to plug in the device and do all that. We're going to do this over the air.
Yeah, that should be a huge benefit for owners and operators. And then just the evolution of seeing your piece of equipment continue to get better, which is not something that, the traditional internal combustion world is familiar with. So yeah, that could be another benefit. So has this whole process kind of generated some new ideas? It seems like, from what I'm hearing, that it's been a success so far. I imagine the production schedule is to continue putting out this kind of equipment. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, we're looking at different platforms and different sizes of equipment. We picked a medium-large track loader is our first one that we picked. We're looking at a skid steer version, which is the rubber tire, with the tires on it version. We showed that at CES. There are some plans to commercialize that at some point in time in the future. That will be an interesting one. The rubber tires using wheels consume less energy. And so we can get even longer battery lives out of that. And again, just some cool things. Just a side note I'll mention to you on the skid steer loader. Typically, skid steers go about 12 to 13 miles an hour. Why? Because, that's because it's all the flow you can get through the pump, generally, of the components. I asked our engineers when I first drove our prototype, and I said, well, how fast does it go? He goes, well, it goes 12 miles an hour. Well, why'd you pick that? He goes, well, because that's what a current skid steer does. Well, could I go faster? Well, yeah. How fast did you want to go? I said, I don't know. I want to go 20. Oh, okay. So he took software, and I drove a skid steer 20 miles an hour. And again, brilliant people work for us. He limited the movement of the joystick at high speed so it wouldn't have, aggressive turning. Again, prototype machine, wow. But just the coolest tech. Again, it's just another example of what you can do with this platform that you can't do with the traditional technologies. And so on the skid steer version, we can go fast, and it's a really cool experience too. So we're pretty excited about that. And then some of the concept machines we shared, those are more futuristic types of things, featuring all electric as well. But there's other platforms right now that we're working with to electrify and look at these different technologies and how they might apply.
Yeah, so it definitely sounds like there's still a commitment going forward. It sounds like the company's bullish on electrification tech. Would that be fair to say?
It is. I'm always quick to point out it's both and, right? We're a both and company. We got great products. Like I say, we've been around for 65 plus years. We've been building diesel hydraulic. It's our core. We're going to keep doing that for a long time. The however is we have customers and applications who are asking for this new technology. I literally get an email a week. I just got one here over the weekend someone asking for an all-electric loader for a particular application, we're there for them. Like, we are there for them, and we're going to work together. And as these things move and as the technologies change, I think we're already starting to see, and we'll see this in other industries, where some of these electrified components and actuators are actually going to go on diesel hydraulic type of machines. There's going to be some crossovers of those technologies because of those inherent advantages. And that's a good thing. The customer wins in either case from that to get them a better performing machine.
Absolutely. Iron sharpens iron, right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, great. So anything else that we haven't talked about yet that we should be talking about?
Well, it's just a different experience. And I think for anyone that's listening out there, if you have the opportunity to try an electrified product, it doesn't matter if it's construction or an automobile, you got to give it a try. Like, you got to give it a try, sit in the seat, drive it, whatever it is, and maybe take some of your misconceptions away for a minute and just try it. We've did this with a number of customers. We brought some really doubting customers in. At the end, they were like, I think I would buy this. Like, it was just an amazing switch. And so I just always would encourage people, just give it a try before you doubt it, and you might be surprised.
So along those lines, I'm glad you mentioned that. Is this something that is available in the rental market by any chance?
Sunbelt Rentals is our first rental partner for the T7X, and they are getting the first shipments of these products right now. And it will have some availability at the end of this year for general customers as well for the T7X.
Outstanding. So people can give it a shot and turn themselves into
believers. And the electric excavators and the electric mowers are also available as well.
Great. So if people want to find out any more information, anybody in our audience that wants to learn more about the electric solutions that you have, where should they check that out?
www.bobcat.com. We got a whole pages listing of our electrified products. We also talk about our innovation journey on there. So check it out.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great. We really appreciate you taking the time out to join us and sharing our enthusiasm for electric vehicle tech. And hopefully just the first of many conversations.
Absolutely. Glad to do it, Greg. Anytime.
All right. Thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you.
Take care.